which is commerce and education. You know, with the public school system, it's managed by the state, but in the private space where you play, there's a lot of activity making sure that those with resources, those with means, continue to take advantage of the best universities and the best tools. And you're a black man in a space that doesn't have many black individuals, and you support a lot of black youth. Tell me about how you navigate that space, and what does it look like if you don't have a JVO in what we call support of college transition?
Good question. So, man, by the way, kudos for your journey. I have a lot of people right now that's like, where is the support for the autistic kids? So that's pretty dope. In the beginning of my journey, I was in the IT space, right? And then I moved over to the education space roughly around 2008. And so I taught in high school for 4.5 years. Taught basically every single math known to man. I was early coming up, right? You know, I was a freshman in high school at 12. And so I graduated early, and then I just kind of navigated my way through education. And I became an instructional coach, teaching teachers in math for a while, and then became an adjunct professor at a university, and then decided, what does this look like now in the education space, right? We didn't have not only those that look like us, right, in the classroom, but no support inside the classroom or outside of the classroom. So that's when I decided to start. Back then it's like tutoring, before now we moved over to Inc. Education, and we decided, hey, how can we build a solution that makes sense for our black, brown, and BIPOC community? And what that looked like was not just, hey, we're going to a Silver or a Kumon in the center and we're just doing repetitious things, right? Yeah. What it looked like was building solid relationships with parents and students, getting deep in that and figuring out the why behind what they needed and the how, and what was going to happen, and then including different stakeholders into their processes. So we're getting parents, teachers, counselors, students, coaches, right, into the process to make sure that everybody's on one page, and we mentor the students and provide them the support that they need. And so what we found through the course of time was black and brown kids need more than just the education and the content being taught to them. What they really need is this interaction right here. So the black and brown young men and young women can say, hey, I know you want to do this in school, but I can relate to you because I'm an entrepreneur, because I'm a doctor, because I'm an attorney, or whatever, right? An engineer, and they have somebody to relate to. And so as we continue to build the company, I wanted to have a different situation of people being hired in. So we don't just, hey, have a career builder or whatever to bring into our company. We've been known as kind of the elite tutoring organization to come into, because you can't come into the company unless you're either recommended by one of the executive C-suite members or one of the regional managers. So we keep it in-house and close. So anybody that comes in gives the best effort for our students. And so now we're at 11,000 plus students that we've served in the black and brown community. We have a 95% success rate of our students of color getting A's and B's in over 50 subjects nationwide. And they're getting what they need from somebody who looks like them, walks like them, and talks like them, when 53% of the students that are sitting in the seats of urban schools, right, are not us, right? So, are us, right? But they're being taught by those who don't understand us. And when you have that situation, especially in the case of a pandemic, they're not being supported the right way. So we kind of wanted to draw that out of those students and get what they need.
Can you run those numbers back one more time for it was slightly impressive? I don't know if you missed it or not.
Oh, no.
I missed the ovation. But if you don't mind running that back.
Oh, Lord. All right, so basically, let me run that back a little further. I started off as a one-man show, knocking door to door, grassroots, bootstrap, no venture capital, none of that stuff. I'm actually in an accelerator in Silicon Valley right now, but one-man show. We raised it to serving about 11,000 plus students of black and brown, origination, right? And we're now the number one black-owned private education and tutoring company in the United States. I was talking earlier to a gentleman, and I talked about last year in Q4, we became the only black and brown tutoring and education company to ever make the Forbes list. And I think that it was a win for everybody, not only in this room, but those that represent us in education, because like my man said, there's not many of us in education. There's less than 2% of black males who are in the education space, and our students can't find somebody to look up to. We have to be the people that stand in front of them and say, you know what, you can be like me to do X out there when you get out in the corporate world, or get out there in the real world, and you can apply the knowledge that you've learned outside the four walls. They don't have an opportunity to see that from those who look like us. So it's important for us not to shut off the pathway that gets them to their dreams and goals. We want to cut short the pipeline in the prison, and we want to make long the pipeline to success. And I think that's where we want to run into.
Venetia, you spent 11 years as a real estate investor before going into, I guess, the cash flow or broker owner space of real estate. How do you think that helped you navigate as a broker?
Wow, that changed my whole entry into real estate in the sales position, because doing it and then meeting people who want to do it or who are actually doing it, we formed a connection instantly. My first year in real estate, 90% of my clients were investors. So I was able to leverage that, and I think that's how I was able to become successful in my business, because I didn't just walk it. I didn't just talk it, I actually walked it. So it definitely played a humongous factor.
And Julian, so you came into real estate at the worst time possible, and you decided to do it as an underwriter. You had a family history in real estate, brokers space, but why did you go in as an underwriter first? What was the thought process behind that?
Wow. So for me, it was, as he mentioned, so my family owned a residential brokerage here in Fort Worth. And so I was always around the business, and I used to hear my mother, who started the first Spanish-speaking real estate office in Tarrant County over 35 years ago. And so my father's black, my mother's Mexican. And so unfortunately I lost my mother at a young age. And so I got to see what she was going through as a broker owner. And the one thing I used to see all the time in her office was she was fighting with loan officers all the time. What do you mean you can't do this? What do you mean the debt to income ratio? Did you look at this alternative credit trade line? I'm like, what is this language you're talking? And so for me, I was a sports background. I was a high school All-American baseball, collegiate All-American baseball. I thought I was going to get drafted and out of high school, and that's the one sport, if you guys follow it, that it can happen, in addition to basketball. And so that was my passion. I thought that was going to be my ticket. And so growing around in the real estate space and seeing what she was going through, in 2008, when my career came to an end in minor league baseball, I suffered a bad leg injury. And so I said, well, man, I want to go back and learn the money side of the business. I don't want to just go into a family office and, buying and selling. I want to learn how the money works. And so 2008, like he mentioned, was the year I retired. And at the time, it was Countrywide Home Loans. So anybody familiar with Countrywide Home Loans? Yeah, so I went into that space, and I came in as a loan officer. Then at that time, the big merger transition with Bank of America was going on, 08 and 09. I remember one day I came to the office and said, get rid of all your Countrywide stuff with Bank of America. Brian Moynihan, the CEO, flew into Dallas. And so I ended up going on different projects. So went into origination, to underwriting, and into loss mitigation. And then I ran a team when President Obama in office. They came out with the Making Home Affordable program and the Making Home Affordable refinance program. And so I was part of a special project team where I learned that side and starting to see and hear these stories of people that we were servicing these loans on. It was a real eye-opener for me, because I saw that being upside down, these mortgages, a lot of these areas of soft market, it was just a unique space. And it was like, man, at the end of the day, what we do is so much bigger than us. And I started to hear the playback of what I grew up in, this business that my mother got in, my father got in, was at the end of the day, my dad used to always say, man, listen, real estate is one thing that's never, no matter what market, everyone has to have a home to go home to. And so despite any recession that we run into, so that's really what got me into the origination side. Fast forward a few years in doing that, I ran a team, 35 auditors. We were auditing FHA modifications, nice corner office, 6-figure salary, young guy, had my own parking space, married my wife, and then I got a call. My mother's like, my sister's crying, said, hey, mom's not well. Doctor's appointment, came back, she has cancer. And so I remember I just turned 30. I walked into my boss's office. I said, man, listen, here's my laptop, I'm out. Didn't call my wife, didn't tell nobody. Just walked out the office. We had just built the house in Irving. And I said, man, listen, at the end of the day, everything that had gone through up to that point had positioned me to go in and take over the position as a broker owner now and do what I've done over the last 8 years. So it's been a fun ride, and Now we educate families, and everybody that I work with is all relational, relationship driven. And now just having that full spectrum knowledge of origination, underwriting, loss mitigation, and then now the brokerage side of it is all kind of coming together full circle. It's been quite a ride so far, so we're excited. In a nutshell, that's
All
it.
right. Nisha, how does a partnership with Jay look like to you? How do you connect with somebody in education as you're trying to move real estate? And what are the benefits of connecting with the Jay?
Me and Jay, we do stuff all the time. Like, we're friends in real life.
Yeah.
So, I think me and Jay connected on credit repair. He has a credit repair structure within his brand. I send a lot of business to him. Education-wise, I mean, you can't go wrong with just speaking to people. As many people that he touches, the children, they have parents.
Yeah.
And those parents, everyone needs a place to stay, whether it's an apartment or, just guiding into home ownership. And it's just a segue into opportunity. Him working with me and me working with him.
Right. So, you got a question?
I missed the introduction. Did Benicia tell people about Benicia?
No, she didn't get a chance to dive into it, so we're gonna put you on the spot because we got a second moderator out here.
I just wanted to say something before she says it, because I guess this is really good to what Space and Equity and what OB and the team is doing. Well, whenever she began to talk about, she was doing what she was supposed to do as she was talking. So I've probably been following her on Instagram maybe 5-6 years, and we just developed a good rapport. So I was able to see her from when she was doing single family housing, going to developers, right, raising capital. Matter of fact, she told me, this is why I knew she was good. I told her I was interested in one of the properties she had because I wanted to flip it to the investor. She said, hey, you know what? You can pull up. This time, I'll meet you at the property. Matter of fact, I only got to meet you there because you can unlock it. It's already there. So to her, where she is now, organically, I saw her as an entrepreneur, have faith in herself, have a vision, and she was executing. And so for me to see her in this position right now in the room is just faith operating, right? It's one thing, but when you put action behind it, it puts you in a different position. So me just seeing her to this, where she's lending money out, she's educating, it's created deal flow because she provided value to the marketplace. And that value first, I see, started with her having the belief that she was providing a service that in some sense will bring equity. And so that's just me giving a little bit of me just seeing her brand and everything maturate to where she is today.
Of course, she said pull up. Her and I are from Southern Cali, so that's our thing. Pull up.
Okay, you guys, so just a little bit about me. And I've worked so hard to get to where I am, and I did start at the bottom, and now we're here. But I'll go a little bit further. So I started growing up. My mother used to take me to model homes, and I think she did that to keep us out of trouble. It was like Saturdays and Sundays, we're just gonna go walk, we're not buying anything, we didn't have it. But we used to walk through these model homes, and it created this vision in me to where, I don't know if it was an interior design vision or a connectivity to walking through the threshold of a door and wanting to know what's on the other side, or thinking what's on the other side, or guessing about what's on the other side, but it did put something inside of me. And then when I was 19 years old, just as a regular consumer, I bought my first house. Used my credit, I had a good job, and I was able to purchase a home. I kept that home for about 2 years. I sold it, made double the profit, and bought another home. By the time I was 26, I had about 20 properties that I owned personally as investment properties. And I just kept buying. I would move, and then I just wouldn't sell it. And I would put a tenant in there, and I would move again because my job required me to move a lot. It just happened like that. Fast forward, my job moves me to Texas, to Dallas. I'm migrating back to LA because I'm thinking I'm about to get back to LA. So I pit stop in Dallas. I'm supposed to be here for a year. A year turned into 2.5 years. And I'm in Dallas because I'm supposed to go promote to another job, as I always do. They move me all the time. I always raise my hand. I'm the black girl that raised their hand. I'm the one that's on the shiny covers of all the brochures that they had. I did the job with excellency. However, when I got to the point where I got to Dallas, Texas, it seemed like something was holding me here, like it was like this. And I just saw everybody crossing me and going into their positions, and I was like this. So I was like, okay, God, are you trying to tell me something? Am I here in Dallas to touch somebody? Because I shouldn't be here for more than 12 months. And so it gets about 2.5 years. I just started praying and asking God, because first of all, I needed strength.
Yeah.
I was stressed out. I was like, okay, what am I doing here? Why am I not getting my next leveraged job? And this job was supposed to take me into executive position in this corporate job. So instead of me thinking, oh, they're hating on me and they're trying to hold me down, I just started internalizing it and saying, God, is there something that you want me to do? Is there someone you want me to touch? And I prayed for about 8 months consistently. And then God spoke to me. He said, get a real estate license. I heard a man speak, and there was no man in my house. It was just me and the meditation, the darkness, and it said, get a real estate license. So I opened my laptop. I typed in real estate. I don't know what time at night this was, but I bought the course instantly. It was $499. They said, you want to rush it? I said, yep. The books came the next day. I get the books. Now my job was taking me to Paris. Literally, like the day I prayed, the day I got the books, the next day I was flying to Paris. Had I not gotten that book, I would have just took off to Paris and books would have came and it would have just sat there for 4 months. The books came. I packed them up with me. I went to Paris for 4 months. France, not Texas. Yeah, let's be clear. Let's be clear. Okay. We're on a journey overseas, not down the street. And so I took my books with me to Paris, France. And I spent time in France. I love France. I've been there many times, but this time was different. It was like I had a focus. And so while people were at the Champs-Élysées and at the Louvre and all stuff like that, they're eating croissants and blah, 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 I'm doing my thing, but I go home and I study, right, in my room. 4 months I'm in Paris to the day. I land back in Dallas. I go to Carrollton, Texas. I take this test. I passed it on the first time. Intense knowledge, 5 thick books. I had no idea what was going to happen. I took the test. I passed it. I'm in a course, like a class with the Board of Realtors, and they tell you that you need to take this 1-day course. They'll give you this little key fob. This is how you open the doors to show houses. This is sales, right? So I am sitting in the class just like this. Looks just like this. Tables, blah, blah, blah. People are in there. It's an 8-hour day. And my phone rings while I'm at the table. I don't know nobody in Texas because I only came here to do this job for a year. I got stuck here for almost 3 years. I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends. I don't talk to anybody. Nothing. And my phone rings. It's a woman on the phone. She's like, I want to look at a house in Fort Worth. I had never been to Fort Worth because I just went from my job to the grocery store, my kids' daycare, come home. That was my routine. I ain't had no boyfriend, no nothing, no friends, nothing. It was like, why is this lady calling me? I don't know anybody. But anyways, I talked to the lady, and she said she want to look at this house. I said, okay. So I just acted like I'll see you at 4 o'clock because it's like after the class. I'm not gonna tell her I'm brand new. I don't even know how she got my number. So I showed the house and she loved it. It's $60,000 somewhere in River Oaks. It looked like trash to me, but it was gold to her. And I said, you love it, I love it, let's go. She was a cash buyer. She said, I wanna put $60,000 cash. I close in 10 days, quick close. I said, all right, because I'm an investor and I speak the language and I already did this within my own consumer living lifestyle, I did what I was supposed to do, negotiated it down, because that's what I would do for myself, wrote the contract, never written the contract, but guess what, we're gonna figure it out, we're gonna Google it, whatever.
Right now.
And so, right now, right? And so I submitted the offer, got accepted, closed in 10 days, all cash, quick close, blah, blah, blah. Ever since then, I got a deal every week. The first year I sold over 200 houses. Wow. And all of my clients the first year, like I say 90%, but it was really like 99% were investors. And they just kept coming to me because 2015, the market was really hot. It was kind of changing in Dallas. All these people were coming here from all over. They were just buying stuff. And I just fell into it. And I know it was God. He told me to do it. I followed it. And he opened the door. But after, when I did the first year, 200, then I did 350 the second year, because I gotta be in competition with myself. So I had to do better. And so I did 350 the second year, but I had no idea because I had never engaged with other real estate agents that the average realtor sold 8 houses. Until I started opening up my social media, and that was around year 5. Around year 5, and so I started engaging with more agents. They're like, "You want to come out to dinner with us? We're having these events, blah blah blah." I show up, but I wouldn't stay. I don't really entertain certain things, right? I just want to get in, get out. Because first of all, you're not my client. We all trying to do the same thing. I want to go in a room where there's other people that I don't know. So, anyways, when I started meeting more realtors, they started following me on social media, and they were like, "What are you doing? If you started a company, I would join your team." Blah blah blah. Well, 2.5 years in, Black Enterprise reached out to me. They selected me as top entrepreneur of the United States.
Is that right? Is that right?
Yes. Yes. And then I started my real estate company, the Bailey Watson Real Estate Group. Me and Julian were honored. I literally had just launched that company. But all this stuff that I did on my own merit,
What was
right?
that? That was like what, 5, 6
It was about 5 years ago.
5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
We first met. That
Started
was,
social media.
Yep.
and we've been grinding. It's funny, I haven't seen her in so long.
Yeah.
You know, literally, we met. What was that? Talented 10 Fort Worth. It was a
Yeah.
Fort Worth event.
Better Town.
Better Terror.
And then I think we were top 10 in Fort Worth area.
Top 10 in Fort Worth.
Tarrant County.
Tarrant County stretches.
Yep.
Main
And
Street.
then so I started my company, Bailey Watson Real Estate Group. I had 10 agents join my team. Now I have 200 agents.
Well,
And then I started building houses because I said, you know what, I'm gonna do something that outlives me. You make a bunch of money in real estate, or just in general, and people start buying all kind of bull crap and stuff like that, putting their money to cars and foo-foo. I said, I'm gonna do something that's gonna outlive me. So I just bought a bunch of land all over Dallas, Texas.
you
And I
don't
said,
just buy bags.
I don't buy bags, I buy dirt.
Alright.
And then,
That's a t-shirt.
yeah, I just started buying land, and I already had the vision because I helped so many people that I knew what people liked. So I just said, I told my friend, I said, I hired him as a general contractor, and I said, put that, and he did what I told him to do. And then after that, I sold the houses, made a bunch of money, and from there, I had an opportunity that presented itself to me, and I took it. And the guy said, "Hey, you can own a bank," and I said, "I don't do finance, and I'm not a loan officer. I don't come from that space. I sell houses." He said, "No, you don't have to process the loans. You could just own the bank, and people will work for you." I said, "Tell me more." And then he told me. I went through the vetting process. It took about 2 weeks. I secured a name, and the rest was history. Now I have a federally chartered bank. Wow. It is it's based right here in Dallas, Texas. My office is in South Lake, but I'm moving it to Arlington, into the Highlands. And yeah, I have 62 loan officers that work directly for me. I have processors and underwriters, and we do mortgage loans because it's in the same space as real estate sales. So I'm a one-stop shop. So I do commercial, residential loans, and I have different niches. I have over 1,000 different loan programs. Anything a bank can do, I can do. Anything Bank of America, whatever other company is out there, I can do. It's just a Black-owned space. I do not have any business partners. I'm the sole owner. I don't ask anybody for anything. I make all the decisions. And I have margins where I can play a little bit, in the space. As long as it's within the guidelines, I can make things happen for people. So I do things that offer 500 credit score for FHA buyers. I can do bank statement loans, which for entrepreneurs. I can just take a copy of your bank statement and qualify you. I don't have to look at your tax returns because that's what we all do. We write everything off. So traditional banks don't want to do business with us, or they don't want to give us our just because they are looking at all these numbers and it's not making sense to them. Well, it makes sense to me, so come do business with me. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
No problem. This is how do you leverage your platform, which is a large platform, to advance your why. So tell us briefly,
I'll go get that one.
how are you advancing your why with all that? Because you are doing a lot. And what is it? How is your message projected as a result?
I think my why really centers on God speaking to me and saying, get a real estate license. That is my purpose, that is my why, and all I had to do was just walk into the door that he already had
Hey.
provided for me.
Yeah.
So it's like that wall right there may look like a wall for somebody, but that's somebody's door. And when you listen and you, like when you pray, you're asking God for something. When you meditate, you're going to hear what he needs to say. So sometimes we need to go deeper. And then we discover our why, and I think that's what I came to, so.
So I'm gonna bring Lola in and we're gonna bring your question, sir. So Lola, you have a very posh job. You can tell folks, hey, I work at Chase. I'm an attorney, esquire for Chase Bank. But then the platform that just came about in the last 18 months has propelled you much further. Tell me why the Chase platform is not as significant as what you're doing today, in your opinion.
It's funny. What's happening is my whole life, the personal and the professional are melding together. So when I launched the podcast 18 months ago in the midst of the pandemic, my goal was to show people who weren't in our situation what families like ours go through. So the disabled community during the pandemic, on a good day, if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes two when you have special needs. And when the lockdown hit, our therapists were gone, our special educators were gone. So when parents of neurotypical kids were complaining about, oh, I'm a teacher and I have to work full time. This is what I had to do in one day with no education. Physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist, behavioral therapist, special education teacher, regular parenting, wife, full-time attorney at JP Morgan. I did not know that all those things, all these puzzle pieces would fit. Because 18 months later, as of a month ago, I am now a legal advisor within Chase for our ADA governance team. ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, for those that don't know. So I help to legally advise the bank on how to make our financial products and services as accessible as possible to people with disabilities. So without me launching this podcast, when you decide to be vulnerable, the lanes that open for you, you can't even begin to realize. I had a friend from high school who's now a pediatric surgeon call me and say, I found your podcast. And I didn't realize, because one of my children is also intellectually disabled due to mishaps in Black maternal health. She called me and said, because of my podcast, she's going to start talking to her residents on how to keep this top of mind, Black maternal health.
Right now.
So that's just one avenue. You don't know who's listening when you choose to be vulnerable about your story. About 6 months into the podcast, we're still in the pandemic, I get a call from the TEDx Plano curator.
Okay.
I get this text. Hey, the theme of this year's TEDx talk is Undaunted. And based on what I'm listening to your podcast, when I think of Undaunted, I think of you. I had 3 weeks to prepare said TEDx talk, 3 weeks. In a typical TEDx year, you get a coach, you get all these fancy things when you're giving a TEDx talk. Remember, we're still in the midst of the really stronger parts of the pandemic. I had to, if you watch me on this TEDx talk, I'm pontificating, talking, there's nobody in the audience. Based off of that, a friend of mine from law school who's now editor-in-chief of an online publication called me out of the blue. Hey, I've been listening to your podcast, this TEDx talk. You want to become a columnist for my publication? Then Chase, where I work, hears word of the TEDx talk and all these things I'm doing. They now ask me to be part of the offsite of which they're playing my TEDx talk at work. So I'm watching this in real time thinking,
Yeah.
after watching myself in this TEDx talk at work, the head of the governance team reaches out to me and says, you clearly have a passion for this. I'd like you to start working on some special projects. I'm now part of her team. And I'm beginning to now sit at this intersection of advocacy, accessibility, and commerce. And I'm seeing all these opportunities. One of the most underfunded areas of tech is assistive tech. Just like when these tech bros are designing the future for the rest of us, they're not thinking about those of us that look like this. They're also not thinking about people who are differently able. So the assistive tech my daughter is using is just the beginning of what the future can hold. And I happen to be sitting in this global financial institution, learning how we're making these financial products and services more accessible for people with disabilities, but that can be copy and pasted in so many different industries. So I'm learning, like clearly you have learned before me, to follow his path. Because sometimes God talks to us through closed doors. And there are certain doors that have been closed for me because my family is not, quote, like everybody else. But what's opening up is so much bigger than me. And I'm beginning to see light where I thought there was only darkness.